The simple fact about games is that they're not all great, and not everyone is going to enjoy every game. Sony's AAA games have reached a point where every title is easily sold on a trailer alone. These games are blockbusters, audio-visual spectacles designed to sell. In the hand though is when some issues reveal themselves. Outside of the common bugs and performance issues, small things that hamper the experience can arise. An unwieldy UI, a tedious tutorial, or loose lip syncing alone are not enough to ruin a game, but can stop the player from falling in love with one. That is the thought that was brewing as I played Days Gone. Days Gone makes falling in love easy in the beginning. The beautifully rendered forests and mountains of rural Oregon form the zombie-filled racecourse of your dreams. The mechanical impact of the motorbike system even puts some fully fledged racing games to shame. Power sliding your motorcycle through an obstacle course of zombies as you fill them with bullets, and swarms of zombies shambling out of buildings only to be mowed down by a Tommy gun. How could you not fall in love? The story contains all the mainstays of the genre. Camp leaders of varying moral compasses, selfish personalities waiting to stab you in the back, and a mysterious government operation. All of these things are solidified staples of the genre, and they're done well here. Where this starts to turn sour though is the intersection between the story delivery and the gameplay. TV shows and movies have long been the main influence on how video game narratives are told. Days Gone being a narrative-based zombie game, there's no doubt in my mind that a large inspiration for the game was the Walking Dead TV show. The presentation and focus on characters in The Walking Dead has inspired hundreds of games and popular TV series. The fluid-like movements of the undead in War Z was clearly a huge inspiration, while the motorcycle club theme was borrowed from Sons of Anarchy. While Days Gone manages to pull some very good elements from these franchises, in the process of translating these elements to video games, they might have borrowed slightly too much from these influences. In comparison to film, video games are a relatively new art form. Developers are still searching for the best way to communicate their story to the player. There are two predominant methods for achieving this. Linear games like The Last of Us rely heavily on the standard that is set by the film industry. Keeping the player in a tightly controlled environment allows the developer greater control on how the narrative plays out. In this system, main and subplots are made to intertwine together to form one cohesive narrative, and are able to deliver story beats at regular intervals. The second method is the quest system, where main and subplots are divided into main and side quests, and allow the developers to create more elaborate subplots or even entirely separate stories within the same game. The quest-based system has become popular in open world games for its ability to spread content throughout a large world and prevent too many storylines from becoming too unruly. Because of Days Gone's inspiration from TV and movies and the way that the story was written, the developers needed to maintain a strong grip over the linearity and the pacing of the narrative. However, the mechanics of Days Gone demand a sprawling open world. To motivate the player to engage with the motorbike upgrade system, they need to be supplied with an enormous space to explore. A zombie horde won't be much fun if the player only has one or two ways to tackle the problem. In Days Gone, the developers decided on a storyline system to deliver the story. The game tracks individual plot lines as they interact with the main story. When the player goes to check their progress or track an objective in the storyline menu, they'll find something that looks suspiciously like a quest log. This wouldn't be a problem if the game was set up with a quest-like system, but if you just follow the yellow triangle that indicates the next story mission, you'll notice a lack of distinct main storyline. The main storyline itself is made up of missions from other side storylines. As you manage to settle into one storyline, not long after that, another storyline will cut in and pull you away again. The storyline system fails to follow what every other design decision implies. The game has a large open world, various camps and factions to interact with, and a menu that reminds me of a quest log, but the storyline is starkly linear in contrast. Wherever a game lands on the spectrum of linear to open world, not only are there mechanical implications to this decision, they also influence the ideal method for a game to deliver its narrative. Linear games that make heavy use of a quest-based system might suggest a freedom that doesn't exist. Likewise, an open world with a linear story can feel stifling to the freedom that does exist. Video games are a tricky medium to get right. You either have to perfectly balance story and gameplay, or focus so intently on one that the other suffers. Games that get that right are few and far between, and I think we unfairly dismiss those that don't. Days Gone didn't get it right, but most games don't. So while I found Days Gone hard to love, it was still very easy to enjoy.